So have you ever felt like your metabolism was doing its own thing? Like it didn't matter what you did, but the metabolism just seemed to be slowing. Your weight loss is stalled. Your blood sugars are higher. Your blood pressure is higher. Your cholesterol is higher. And all these other things that you thought were better just didn't seem that way. If you've been working and you've been doing some things in your metabolic space, if you've been looking at some numbers, you thought, man, this is a way to go. But yet it seems like that's not working. Well, the question is, what are the things that disrupt or destroy our metabolism? And that's what we're going to be talking about here on this episode. Hey, if you're new to me, I'm Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. We are breaking free from those boundaries, those borders, those obstacles that inhibit us. We are presenting our best selves, our best health, and our best plans for our life. We are not allowing anything from inside of us or anything from outside of us to hinder us from getting into that metabolic space. I'm talking to adults with type 2 diabetes who want to reverse their diabetes, and we welcome you tonight. If you are new to me, go ahead and put new in the comments because I'd love to welcome you with a hand clap and let you know that we are excited that you're here. If you do have a question, go ahead and put that in the chat with a Q in front of it so I'll know as I look through that list that is something that we do want to get to as we move through the episode. I welcome you whatever platform you're on. I do see some of our members, community members already out there, whether you are on LinkedIn or you are on Twitch or Instagram or Facebook, and of course here on YouTube. We welcome you to this space. If you know someone who should be in this space right now, go ahead and let them know that they should be here, that we are ready to go and we're ready to move through the process. I do want to take a moment and say, today is a special day. We are celebrating Martin Luther King Day, and I am so excited to be one of the recipients of all of the amazing benefits that come from his history and from the history of the work that he's done. So there are a lot of people around the country that are celebrating that. Just wanted to do a quick shout out. I would not have the opportunities I have right now to talk with you and to engage with you and to be part of your journey were it not for the work that he and so many other people that were with him have done. So happy birthday right now as we celebrate his life. All right. So with that said, let's hop over and let's say hello to some people. But first, before I do that, you know how we do. I've got some things we're going to take a look at. I've got my monitors off to the side. I've got my Dexcom Clarity that you will see right down below me, and we'll take a look at those blood sugars. I did a short video earlier today that's going to come out where I actually ate something and we got to take a look at the blood sugars, and this is actually the result of what my blood sugar has been even after eating that. So you should see that out there. We'll talk about that here also in just a minute. But let's hop over and let's say hello to some of our community members that we see out there. And let's see. What do we have? Let's start here. Okay, here we are. So Jennifer is saying howdy. She says howdy all. Hey Jennifer, thanks for coming through. Glad that you are here. And then Pamela is saying hello everyone. Cornelia, hey Cornelia. She said hello everyone. Hello. Steve is saying hello ladies. Lorraine, hey everybody or everyone. I'm glad that you're here. And Gian says hi doctor, hi all. Happy to see you here. Wood Gang. The gang is all here. The gang is all here. I'm so excited for that. Who was that? Was it Autumn that dubbed us the Wood Gang? All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at blood sugar. So we'll get that set, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about some other things. Okay, so blood sugar right now, you see my Libre says my blood sugar is 98. And let's see, it is 7:11. So probably about 3 hours ago, I ate I ate for the first time in 40 hours, right? So I was on a 40-hour fast, and so I broke that about 3 hours, so shy of maybe 3 minutes, right? 2 hours and 57 minutes. Now I just watched the clock change, and so I ate, and so now it's 3 hours after finish eating, and so that my blood sugar is 98, is what you see right there. And let's go over and let's take a look at the Libre, Dexcom. And Dexcom says right now I'm 135. And at the time when I ate, when I finished eating, not when I started eating, when I finished eating, I was 135. So 3 points. Oh, so it's the same number. Look at that. Okay. And then earlier in the day, been kind of running in the 130s, 140s. As I said to you before, my blood sugars have been about 30, 35 points higher since I became ill a couple of weeks ago, and that's still there. So that's what my blood sugars are. As you know, I've got my monitor, so let's go ahead and take a look at those. And I've got a contour and I've got a contour. Actually, you guys didn't see that, did you? Okay, so let's go ahead and go back. Here we are. So here is my... Let's go back here for a sec. All right, here is what my Dexcom is saying, 135. And my Libre says 98. So 98 for the Libre, 99 now. And then Dexcom, 135. If I run and look at the numbers earlier in the day here on the Dexcom, you see right now it's 135, and when I finished eating 3 hours ago, I was 135. Yeah, so 133. So 2.2 milligrams per deciliter higher than what I was there. Okay, and then let's go ahead and look at these guys. So these are my meters. This is my contour. I'm getting a strip for that one. And at that time, I did not check my ketones, by the way. And then here is my Keto Mojo, glucose and ketone strips. And let's go ahead and open this one up. If you guys remember last week, we had some challenges with the ketone. I still don't know what happened with those ketones. Let's go ahead and grab this one. All right, and so I think I'm going to use one of these spring-loaded lancing devices. I'm going to take two because sometimes they don't quite work for me. But let's go ahead and basically twist this top off. Find a good spot on a finger. I think I'm going to use a different finger because that one I tend to use all the time gets a little calloused. So let's go ahead and let's see if this one gives us a good, maybe not. Okay, so no. Let's grab another one. So I guess I may go back to that same finger. All right, let's find there and... All right, so let's see. Man, I am not having any luck. I think that's because my hands are cold. We just got back from a trip, and it is cold outside, y'all. All right, so let's go ahead and this one hopefully will give us a good... Wow. You guys see that? That's the third one. Okay, here we go. Let's get that started. And get another drop for, here's the contour. So 119 for the Keto Mojo. And 121 for the contour. Let's go ahead and get this out and get the strip in for the ketones for the Keto Mojo. And of course now I have 2 drops of blood because that other one is starting to give me a brisk drop. So that one's getting ready started over there. All right, and we'll come back to that here in just a minute. All right. So let's go ahead and let's have our conversation. So when we talk about, so we're talking new year, new you, right? So that's the path that we're on. And we've been in the process of talking about reversing diabetes. The pillars: decreasing, right? Decreasing insulin, suppressing the appetite, and reducing sugar. So those are the three pillars that we continue to use. Those are the three pillars that we've learned. When we talk about diabetes reversal, the major thing that happens in diabetes is a dysregulation in our metabolism. Metabolism, if you recall, is that process that the body uses to take the stuff that comes from outside, that's the things that you eat, and converts it to energy so that the body can function. So that's what metabolism is called, or that process is called metabolism. And so when we're talking about metabolic diseases, metabolism, we're talking about processes that have dysregulated somehow that conversion of the things that we eat into energy that the body can use. And that energy that the body uses either is for burning or for building. Those are the two kind of components that go on with the food that we eat. Either we burn it for energy, that is to run your brain and your heart and your lungs, and when you're moving, that's part of it. Or we're talking about building. That is, we're building muscles, we're building bone, we are creating enzymes, those substances in our body that help to catalyze all the reactions that transfer energy from one place to another, transfer signals in the nervous system, helps our GI tract with all the communication that goes on, right? So those are the two arms that metabolism takes care of. Either we are burning, we're using it up, or we are building. When we talk about building, and I made a point in one of our conversations last week, when we talk about building, we're not necessarily just always talking about fat. We're not just always talking about increasing fat. And sometimes when we have that conversation, it seems like those are the only two things. Either we're using it for energy or we're building fat. But I wanted to throw in there that it's not just building fat, but it's building muscles and bones and enzymes and protein structures and all those other things. And the thing that makes the decision about whether something is going to be stored or used for energy, not necessarily the building of muscles and bones and so forth, but to be stored as fat, is insulin. And insulin is the culprit in a lot of metabolic diseases, because insulin, when it is abnormally high, it causes the food that we eat, rather than going to burning for energy or necessarily going for building, it goes into increasing fat cells. It goes into increasing the fat that's in our liver. It goes to causing high blood pressure and high cholesterol and all the downstream things that we've talked about when it comes to metabolism. Okay? So dysregulated metabolism is metabolism that for some reason has gone astray, gone awry, because something has caused a difficulty, caused it not to be able to do the things it needs to do. Make sense? Right. So if we're going to be working on improving our metabolism, we've got to understand the things that dysregulate it, and the goal for all that we do is to get the metabolism regulated again. So all the tools, all the processes, all the discussions, all the things that we're doing, the goal of it is to get the metabolism to be righted, to become homeostatic, that is same, become normal again. So as we discuss new year, new you, remember, we're not allowing anything from outside or from inside to hinder us from achieving the things we need to do. So we're looking at what are those things around us, in us, out of us, that are hindering or becoming obstacles for us righting the metabolism. All right? So I hope that I want to set that stage. So what are the things that can disrupt or destroy the metabolism? And many of the things that we're going to talk about are things that you've seen before, but I want to put a little bit different perspective, right? I want to put a little bit different perspective on it. Because the tools that we're learning, the tools are to help us in the process of going through these things that we're about to talk about, and how do we best regulate them, and what's the current thought and theory and conversation surrounded them. Okay, so what are the things that will destroy metabolism, or metabolism destroyers? And you'll see there, so the things that destroy metabolism: poor diet, physical inactivity, chronic stress, visceral, abdominal fat, hormonal imbalances, environmental features, and genetics or epigenetics. Those are the things that will disrupt metabolism. And so how does poor diet disrupt metabolism? Well, poor diet disrupt metabolism because our diet has a direct effect on how our insulin levels regulate. Let me pause. So the things that we eat have a direct effect on how our insulin works. And remember, insulin is that switch. So excess, for instance, carbohydrates or sugars can cause spikes in blood sugar. Those spikes cause insulin to go up, and that leads to insulin resistance. Number one. But I want to get away from carbs for a minute, because we spend a lot of time talking about carbohydrates, and it almost seems as though we are demonizing carbohydrates. And so I want to get away from this idea of bad carbohydrates. Carbohydrates in and of themselves are not bad. Let me pause, because I can hear it. I can hear it in your head right now. It's kind of like gasoline. Gasoline in and of itself is not bad. Now, we can use gasoline in a in a detrimental way, right? So carbohydrates in and of themselves are not bad, but we can use them in such a way that we create a situation that they now dysregulate metabolism. One of the things I was doing earlier today was, when I finished fasting, I wanted to eat something and record what happened to my blood sugar as a result. And so in the salad, there was a salad that I ate, I had some apples, I had tomatoes, I had lettuce, I had avocado, I had some jalapenos. All of those things are carbohydrates. And one of the things that was in there were those apples. And so a lot of times when we think about fruits, we think that because fruits have sugar in it, then it causes this big spike in our blood sugar. And, one of the conversations that we will have as that comes out is that it depends on how responsive your body is to the insulin that's on board. Oh, let me say that again. So the response that your body has to the food that you eat, the carbohydrates that you eat, is a indirect relationship to how sensitive your body is to the insulin that's on board. So that if your insulin is working, if your body is sensitized to insulin, if it's producing the insulin and the insulin doesn't have anything that's obstructing it, then you can eat an apple, you can eat some grapes, you can eat some, and we can go down the list. See, notice I'm staying away from the cookie candy cake, right? But you can eat things that would normally raise your blood sugar like a cookie and still have normal blood sugars because your body is sensitive to the insulin. The question then becomes, why would my body, if I'm making insulin, not be working in conjunction with the insulin? Or in other words, why does the insulin not work? Well, there are several thoughts that go on in how the insulin works. And one of the major driving thoughts right now is that there is something in the body, there's something in the cell that's preventing the insulin from working. Is causing insulin resistance, if you will. I try not to use that word, but that's the phrase that we use. And so what happens is kind of like, think of a door that you're trying to get through. And if there's someone on the other side of that door that's pressing or pushing the door so that it doesn't open, then you can't get in. And so the concept is that within our cells, there is something that's causing the insulin not to work well, and so the cell can't come in. And the big thing that we believe causes this is the influx of fat into the cell. Not into the fat cell, but into your functioning cells. And so part of the regulation of metabolism is going to be, how do we decrease this obstruction, if you will, that's causing our body not to be able to use the insulin that it has on board effectively? Okay? So notice that it is a high carbohydrate, but is a carbohydrate that's high that's not being processed because of the insulin. And what's causing the insulin not to work is the obstruction that may be in the cell from fat. All right, so high saturated fat intake promotes accumulation of fat in the cells, and it impairs insulin sensitivity, impairs insulin signaling. And so one of the things that we want to do is, how do we now decrease that? All right, so a big part of it is diet, okay? So diet, but like I said, I want to put a little different perspective on when we talk about how the diet affects what we do in terms of the body being responsive to insulin. Okay, we'll come back and we'll talk about what do we do there in a minute. So when we overeat carbohydrates, for one, and that's the one we always talk about. When we overeat carbohydrates, guess what happens? We've got to produce more insulin to be able to regulate the blood sugar that comes from that carbohydrate. When we overeat, we don't tend to just overeat carbohydrate, we also tend to overeat fat that goes along with it. And so now we are compounding the problem because we are eating something that causes insulin to spike, or blood sugar to spike, requiring more insulin, and we're eating in combination with it something that's blocking the insulin from working. So this process overwhelms the body's energy balance, right? And so we get what's called disrupted or dysregulated or damaged metabolism. Does that make sense? All right. So next, physical inactivity. How does this work? Well, when we are inactive, it reduces the muscle's ability to be sensitive to insulin. Notice that word again, that word sensitive. Muscles suck up sugar. But if we are not responsive to the insulin, then the muscle doesn't take the sugar up. So where does the sugar do? It stays in the blood. And when it stays in the blood, it causes all of those other downstream problems. When it stays in the blood, it causes fat storage, especially among in the midsection. So we'll talk about that here in just a minute. It slows the overall energy expenditure, and this causes weight gain. So the sugar comes in, the carbohydrates come in, the fat comes in. We already have a problem where we have an overabundance of insulin or hyperinsulinemia. The fat comes in and the fat blocks the insulin from working. So now we have this term that we use called insulin resistance or decreased insulin sensitivity. And because the body is not sensitive to the insulin, the muscles don't readily use the insulin to take up the sugar. And so the sugar now runs around in the bloodstream, causing other downstream issues. Weight gain, neuropathy, kidney damage, erectile dysfunction, right? So all of those downstream things that we talk about. So physical activity, physical inactivity. So one, diet, physical inactivity, chronic stress. Whoa. Now, under chronic stress, there's a whole host of things that we can list, right? So one, we can start talking about the stress that comes from our environment, from our life, from our work. We can talk about stress that comes from relationships. Stress that comes from poor self-image or negative self-talk. We can talk about stress that comes from poor sleep. We can talk about stress that comes from depression, that comes from stuff that happened in the past, or anxiety that comes from stuff in the future, or poor planning that causes current stress, or procrastination, or restlessness, irritability, and displeasure, discontent. I missed that one. Restless, irritable, and discontent. That comes from not being satisfied with where you are. Not believing that this is where you're supposed to be. You have a dream about what you want to do. You had a thought about what you were going to be doing in life, and you're not doing that right now. You didn't finish school. You didn't get married. You didn't have children. That causes stress. So when we talk about stress, we're talking about anything that causes an increase in the cortisol level. Remember, cortisol and epinephrine, those are the two stress hormones. Epinephrine prepares the body for energy, and cortisol goes out and finds the energy, and it finds it in the form of sugar. So increased cortisol levels lead to elevated blood sugars, and it leads to fat storage. Once again, there's that yin and yang. So sugar, insulin means storage. So whenever we're stressed, this causes disruptions in the hormonal system. It also causes disruptions in the hunger hormone. So ghrelin, which is the hunger hormone, goes up when we're stressed. And leptin, which is the satiety hormone that says, hey, don't eat, I'm full, that goes down. So ghrelin goes up, so you're more hungry, and leptin goes down, saying, hey, I need more. This causes a drive to overeat. And this causes impairment in glucose tolerance. And it makes it harder to control the blood sugar. So anything that causes increase in cortisol will cause a problem for metabolism. Let me say chronic, right? Because a part of life is, as a matter of fact, when we fast, the cortisol levels initially go up because it is a stress on the body. But the prolonged, chronic, day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month, year-to-year stress causes huge issues. When we don't sleep well, that causes increased stress. Right? So all of those processes will cause problems downstream for metabolism. So elevated cortisol levels over a long period leads to visceral fat accumulation. Visceral fat, this stuff right here, that's where it goes. Even if you don't eat an excessive amount, if you have chronic stresses going on, you can watch people, they start to put on fat right in the abdomen. And we used to think that that was just fat cells. We just used to think that, hey, yeah, that's the stuff that's there. But what we've learned is that those fat cells release certain substances that make the body more insulin resistant. Look at that. Does that, you see how it all ties together? So the stress causes weight gain. The stress causes elevated sugar. The stress causes fat accumulation here. And the fat itself releases substances called cytokines. And those cytokines causes the body to be less resistant to insulin. That stress it triggers emotional eating. We've talked about the heat model. Habits, emotions, access, and taste. They cause cravings. And when we're craving, we're not craving, everybody. We don't crave salad. We don't crave broccoli. We don't crave Brussels sprouts. We don't crave all those things, quote unquote, that are supposed to be healthy, right? What do we crave? I'll tell you what I crave. Well, you guys already know. I crave chocolate. I crave candy. I crave cookie. I crave Cinnabon. I crave ice cream. I don't crave broccoli. I'll tell you. If maybe you do, but I don't. So that chronic stress leads to dysfunction, dysregulated, destroyed metabolism. The next thing, so visceral fat, which we just talked about. So it releases those cytokines that cause problems for us, decreases insulin sensitivity. Hormonal imbalances will cause that as well. And so hormonal imbalances, now these are actual disease processes that can happen. So things like hypothyroidism. Right? Hypothyroidism is one of the hormonal imbalances. People who have hypothyroidism, their weight goes on or comes on disproportionately to what else is going on, proportionally to their food and their stress and all those things. Right? It causes a dysregulation of metabolism. So thyroid hormone slows the metabolic rate. It causes fatigue. It causes weight gain. Sex hormones, right? Estrogen, testosterone. Those are the sex hormones. Well, there are more, but those two, right? So declining sex hormones will affect fat distribution and muscle maintenance. So as testosterone goes down, right, we lose muscle. One of the places where women will struggle is with weight gain post-menopause or perimenopause. Because those hormonal changes will affect, they will disrupt, they would dysregulate metabolism. And of course, Cushing's disease. Cushing's disease is another disease process where your body just abnormally produces cortisol, not in response to stress, but just dysregulated production. Those things can cause dysregulation in your metabolism as well. And so these group of diseases are things when you're talking with your doctor, you want to make sure that you are giving the symptoms and what's going on so that they can think about these. So hypothyroidism, Cushing's disease, hyperinsulinemia, which can happen. People tend to have low blood sugars as a result. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, right? Another dysregulation of insulin that causes a disease process. All right. So we're talking about what can damage, what can dysregulate our metabolism. So environmental factors. Now this is one that is a huge issue that we don't normally talk about. So environmental factors. What we're talking about here are there are things called endocrine disruptors. These are chemicals like BPA, which you find in the plastic containers, right? Phthalates, pesticides. They can interfere with immune system functioning and in the regulation of certain hormones. And so if we are in an environment where we are being exposed to those things, then they can now turn around and affect our metabolism. And so we develop these chronic illnesses, not because necessarily that we are not sleeping or not exercising or eating, quote unquote, the wrong thing, but we are now experiencing destroyed metabolism because there are environmental things around us that are causing the problem. Processed food additives, for example, artificial sweeteners and sedatives and additives, coloring, right? What they do is they help sometimes destroy the gut microbiome. That is the stuff that is in the body, those bacteria that's in the gut that's supposed to be helpful. And that alters the microbiome, and that alters our glucose metabolism, and that dysregulates our metabolism. Pollution, airborne toxins, increase inflammation. They promote and can promote insulin resistance. So lots of things around us that can cause disruption, dysregulation in our metabolism. And then genetics, and particularly epigenetics. So genetics has to do with what you inherited from mom and dad and what they inherited from their mom and dad, right? So for me, I inherited from mom and dad, and they inherited from their mom and dad. So that's, I inherited from two people, but they inherited from two people. So I'm inheriting from four people. And if I keep going back and back, I've inherited things from everyone that was ever in my genes, in my gene line. Okay? So there are certain things that certain families are predisposed to. Not always because it is genetic. let me say this. But people who live together tend to eat the same. So sometimes people will say, oh, it's in my genes, right? Diabetes is in my genes, or high blood pressure is in my genes, or high cholesterol is in my genes. Well, if I take someone from that same family and I move them away, like what happens when twins are separated at birth for some reason, one is put to adoption in one family, the other is put in adoption to another family. Guess what happens? One of them develops the thing, quote unquote, that's in the family, that's in the genes, but the other one doesn't. Why? Because families tend to do things the same. They tend to live the same way, eat the same way, exercise or lack thereof the same way. They live in the same environment, so they're affected by the same environmental things. So sometimes it's not necessarily a gene issue, it is still a situational issue. So genetics is the things that come down to you from your family, okay? Now, epigenetics is an interesting study of that history of things that happen through the family. For example, a family may not have diabetes as part of their genetics. But mom somehow develops gestational diabetes. That is diabetes that she gets during the time when she's pregnant. And gestational diabetes goes away. But the baby now, who is born, has an increased risk of diabetes because mom had diabetes. Grandma didn't, grandpa didn't, uncle, cousin, a sister didn't. Nobody else in the family does, but mom developed it because of situational issues, lifestyle issues. She has gestational diabetes, and now baby has a higher risk of diabetes. Not gestational, but just regular type 2 diabetes. When mom is born, every ovary, not ovary, but every egg that she's ever going to have is already in her. When a baby's born. When dad is born, every sperm that he's ever going to have is already there. Well, the genetics for it is already there. So everything that happened to both of them from the time they were conceived has been influencing both of their reproductive and genetic material. So that here I come along, right? Remember, sperm meets egg, and I'm born. Now, it's not just the stuff that they got from their grandparent or my grandparents that they passed on to me, but they passed on to me the places that they lived, the food that they ate, the lifestyle that they lived, the stress that they had, the sleep that they got or didn't get. So epigenetics says that the things that we do in our lives also affects our offspring. So we're not just always talking about us, we're talking about our effect on the next generation and the generation after that and the generation after that. Because the things that are in me are a result of the genetics that my parents passed on to me and the environmental things that they did, food, living, exposures, and the genetics that my grandparents passed on to them that they passed on to me, and the environmental things that my grandparents were involved in, the stresses, the foods they ate, the activity, the lack of activity, and what my great-grandparents passed on to me, genetics and environmental, and my great-great-grandparents passed on to me, right? So notice what's happening. It's not just those guys, my mom and dad. It's all the people going back. So when we are talking about our metabolism, we're talking about from us, whatever we're passing down is all that's going on with us in terms of our activities. So epigenetics is a powerful influencer of metabolism. Traits can increase the risk of metabolic disorders. Poor diet, stress, environmental factors can turn on genes that are associated with inflammation, with insulin resistance. The parent's metabolic health influences their offspring's metabolic health. So as we're talking about new year, new us, we're building a new us. And as we are moving along the limitless living, we're talking about, and that's why I keep saying, it's not just today and tomorrow. This is long term. What is the goal? Where are we heading? We're setting ourselves up for success down the road, and not down the road just for us, but down the road for those people in our families that come after us. Now, it may seem daunting that there's all this stuff that affects us. But you want to hear the good news? Here's the good news. The good news is a lot of it is modifiable by us. It is modifiable by us. We get to make the choice at this moment, at this moment, what we're going to do moving forward. And I remember just a few weeks ago, we were on a show, and one of our community members was saying that they were thinking about the choices that they had made in the past and the complications and some of the issues that are going on now. And one of my points, and I'll say it again, one of my points is that is past. We've all made choices. I've made some choices that have affected me to this day, that are still affecting me. I can't do anything about that, but I sure can do something about now moving forward. And so limitless living says that we're not allowing anything inside of us, those memories, those regrets, those doubts, and we're not allowing anything outside of us, those environmental things, those people, those relationships, to hinder us, because we're presenting our best life and our best health and our best plans for our life going forward. We're not allowing anything to cause an obstacle in that for us. All right. So metabolism. So all of the things that we just talked about, I want you to think about those. A lot of them are modifiable. And as we're moving through limitless living, the goal is, how do we right metabolism? How do we help to regulate our metabolism again? And so when we talk about diet, yeah, we're going to have to make some choices. We're going to have to make some decisions about diet. Activity. Right now we have 100-day walk to consistency and health. That is a plan. That is a goal. That is a tool that we can use. Managing stress. We've got to figure out how to deal with that relationship. We've got to figure out how to get sleep. We've got to figure out how to decrease the inflammation. We've got to figure out how to get rid of some of this abdominal obesity that comes from stress. So that's what limitless living says. That we're moving in a space that allows us to set ourselves up for maximal success in our metabolic health and to reverse our diabetes. Awesome. All right. So let's see. I think I saw a couple of folks pop in. So let me go over and let's say hello to our community members. Let's see. And so we said hello to Gian earlier, Camellia Mac. So John says she was happy to hear Wood Gang. And so Teresa says, hey, Dr. Wood and everyone. Hey, Teresa, thanks you for coming through. Glad that you are here. Steve says, numerous doctor appointments increase my stress. Hey, Steve, you need to talk to one of your doctors and tell him not to see you so much. One of them, any one of them. Gio says, my husband someone raised my blood sugar. I tell people this is the only time you can say to someone, hey, just like we say, hey, you're raising my blood pressure, you can say to them, hey, you're raising my blood sugar. Jennifer says, I crave peanut M&Ms. Yes, Jennifer, peanut M&Ms. We were in Miami this past weekend, and we were walking down the pier there, Bayside, and it seems like everywhere I turned there was like candy and cookies and ice cream and gelato and as a matter of fact, I stopped at a space. Hey, listen to this. I stopped at a place, and there were two sections to this, like a ice cream place, right? And so we stopped and looking, and my wife was asking some questions, and the gal behind the counter, she says, all of these right here are sugar-free. These are diabetic friendly. And when she said that, I almost said, hey, give me some stuff. But I started processing. Wait a minute. I said, is it sweet? She said, yeah, we have some sweeteners that we use. I said, well, how do you make it? Where did you make it? She said, oh, we make it in the back. I said, what do you put in it? She said, well, we have the syrup for the what? For the fruits, because it was like mango and blueberry and anyway, so soursop and stuff. And so I was like, yeah, they may not put sugar in this, but that syrup, I'm sure that has some sugar in it. Anyway, so I didn't get any. You guys would be proud of me. Okay, Gian says, I crave all sweet things. Gian said, Doctor, I think I live life as a daunting job. It can be challenging. Teresa says, wow, deep. So Teresa, tell me what you were talking about there. Yeah, give me a little more context there. Gian says, Cornelio says, Gian, you are hilarious. Yes, 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 yes. Yes, Steve, LOL. Okay, Steve is saying you can see me coming up soon. All right, so Cornelius says LOL. Yes. So remember our goal is a path to reversal. And so we're setting the stage for us to all understand that the metabolism is what we need to attack. And so the things that we're going to be talking about is how do we regulate metabolism? So when we talk about are you organized in your life? We're talking about how are we organizing so that we have time for the things we've got to do to right metabolism? How do we organize so we can decrease the stress? How do we organize so that we can prep for our meals? Notice that organization itself is great because you need to be organized to do everything in your life that you want to do. But here we're talking specifically, how do we right our metabolism, which means that we've got to get organized. We've got to be able to prep. We've got to be able to anticipate what we're going to eat. We have to be able to put into practice some of the things that we're learning. If you're disorganized, then you say, well, I don't have time for that. Well, it's not that we don't necessarily have time, it's that we're not using the time as efficiently as we can. When we talk about the relationship that you're in, how do we deal with that relationship in such a way that it's not triggering me to go get the gelato? Because if I get the gelato, what am I doing? I'm worsening my metabolism. When we talk about the 100-day walk to consistency and health, what is the point of that? The point of that is that we are doing something to use our muscles so the muscles can help us in righting our metabolism. And we're becoming consistent. Because when we're consistent over time, we get the benefits that we need to get metabolically. Awesome. All right. Let's see. Teresa said, great job of resistance. How metabolism work. Yep. Yes. How metabolism works. So thank you, Teresa, for giving us some context. Thank you. Cornelia says, I'm confused. I ordered a superfood green powder and it has the P65 warning on it. Is it still a superfood? Cornelia, the P65. Tell me more about that. P65 warning. So it says the law that requires can cause cancer. So, right. So you're saying that it has, and I think that's from, is it California? I just pulled it up. So what they're saying is that it has the warning that something in it can cause cancer, birth defects, or other reproductive harm. So here's a comment. A superfood does not necessarily mean that the food does not have issues. For example, when I talk to people about blood sugar and diabetes management, I tell them that they can eat, for instance, greens. Or someone has told them that greens are good for you. Or someone has told them that they can eat all the salad they want. Well, salads are good, But you can't eat all the salad you want, because guess what's going to happen to your blood sugar? It's going to go up. Right? There's moderation there. And so some of the superfoods, if you read, they are good because they produce a certain response in our body. They have the vitamins and nutrients, and they stimulate certain enzymes. That's great. But they can also have substances in them that cause other issues. So they're not mutually exclusive. I guess what they should call it is non-problematic superfood, if they really wanted to be on point. The same kind of thing, Cornelia, for when we talk about, what do I have here? When we talk about artificially sweetened things, like I drink this, right? And I drink it because it's better for me, for my blood sugar, than some of the other things I would drink. Like I'd been juice and soda. But the artificially sweetened things can also stimulate appetite. Okay? So you've got to understand the balance between those two. And right? So I hope that answers your question. Awesome. But thank you for the question. Great one. All right. So yeah, if you have questions, go ahead and drop those in to the comments. I do want to let you know that the metabolism, the discussion of metabolism, is a basis for where we're heading. So now that we understand that it is the thing that we've got to regulate, we understand that that's where the intersection is for all of the different dysregulators, and how do we go about correcting them. Everything centers now on metabolism, because that's where insulin is working, that's where cortisol is working, that's where our activity is working, that's our exercise, that's where our sleep and our stress and our anxiety and our depression, that's where it's working, because it's causing that dysregulation. And when that gets dysregulated, then it causes all the other downstream issues for us. Okay? When we talk about the limitless living inventory that we'll do, it is with the idea of identifying the things that are in our space that are causing us issues for our metabolism. When we talk about limitless living, or limitless, right, which is the acronym that you'll hear about, it is with the idea that I need to identify those things that are pushing me or obstacles for me to regulate my metabolism. And now Limitless gives me the way to go through correcting, fixing, and addressing those. All of it centers around the regulation of metabolism. All right, so I do see a question. Let's see. Gion says, Doctor, why do humans crave sugar? Well, we crave sugar because, well, several reasons. And let me not just talk flippantly, but we crave sugar for a lot of the reasons from the heat model. All right, you remember the heat model? The habits, emotions, access, and taste. Habits, emotions, access, and taste. The heat model says that those are the things that cause problems for us. Habits, emotions, access, and taste. And when it comes to sugar, right? Sugar has the ability to, well, let me back up. Many of us associate sugar with pleasure. Think about when we were young, right? When they wanted to reward us, what did they give us? Candy, cookies, and cake. So we began associating sugar with the pleasantness, with comfort, with happy memories. And so we've developed that over time. The other thing is sugar has the ability to give us energy. All right, because we've just talked about the fact that part of our part of our or not part of our metabolism is the idea of taking what we eat and converting it to energy in our body. So if you get stressed, the body needs energy. So you pop some candy and guess what? Boom, you get some energy and you feel good. Chocolate has the ability that caffeine in the chocolate gives us energy, and there's something in the chocolate that calms us. And so we crave it. And then taste, right? Going back to the original point I was just making, that we remember what it was like, because all of the things that we do, all of the activities that we have, guess what's involved with them? Food. And the food that tends to be around there, it's not, once again, broccoli and celery, right? The decadent things, the things that taste good, that have that feeling, right? They're all carbohydrates. And so our body gets used to it. So lots of different things go in to this whole idea of carbohydrates. Okay. All right. Oh, or sugar. And Steve says he thinks that, okay, Steve is putting in what he thinks my, oh, that's not the one I want you guys to see. Steve is putting in what he thinks my ketones are going to be, 0.5. Okay, good. I'm going to hold on to that, Steve. And then Teresa says, Doctor, anyone found a good vitamin for diabetes with almost no side effects? It depends on what vitamin you are looking for, right? I don't usually recommend a particular brand of vitamin, but it depends on what you are looking for, and then, okay, which one has the best of that? So if you're looking for a vitamin D or vitamin A or B12, for example, people who are on metformin, sometimes we'll take B12. So I don't have a brand per se. No, I don't. And there's not, I shouldn't say I don't have a brand. There is a brand I recommend because it contains everything that we usually need. A lot of the other things are, I think they're marketing gimmicks. Okay. Yeah, there is one that I usually tell people in the office to get. I'm not promoting them, so I'm not gonna say their name right now. But overall general vitamin, good for diabetics. There's not one that really is out there. It just depends on what you're trying to get. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and Steve, thank you for reminding me. Let's go ahead and take a look at. So my blood sugar right now is 130, so it is a point lower than it was before. 97, once again, a couple points lower than what it was before. And we're going to take a look at my ketones. So let me go ahead and pull up my Keto Mojo app. All right, come on. And so let's get this one off and go ahead and turn it on. And then we will go ahead and hit the sync button. And it's coming over. And drum roll, please. Drum roll. What do you think? Steve says 0.5. Anybody else? Want to give a guess? What do you think is going to be? 0.5. Going once. I think they say I got to wait for, 15 seconds so that you guys hear me, and then put it in the chat so I could see that again. All right. So 0.5, and here's the drum roll, and wow, Steve, you were on point, man. I love it. So blood sugar of 119, and let me move over to this one. Blood sugar of 119 and ketones of 0.5. Oh, so I've got Jennifer said 0.4, Teresa says 0.6, Gian says 0.6. So you guys are pretty close. I guess I didn't wait long enough because you guys were still putting those in. um, there, yeah. So point 4 for Jennifer. Let's go back over here. So Jennifer says point 4. Teresa says 0.6. Gian says 0.6. And up here somewhere, Steve said 0.5. So Steve got it, 0.5. You get a hand clap for that. Love it, love it. So remember, ketones. So below 0.5 considered normal. 0.5 to 1.5 considered nutritional ketosis, and above 1.5 considered therapeutic ketosis. When we talk about ketosis, we want 0.5 or higher, right? 0.5 or higher. Those of you who are out there who are doing ketogenic diets, people who are working on burning fat and becoming insulin sensitized, this is the range that you want to be in. One of the conversations that we will have going forward is, and I think as we've had the conversation, I want to, and I started having it tonight, is we're not demonizing carbohydrates, right? But carbohydrates are a big part of reversing diabetes. Carbohydrates, sugar, right? That third pillar, reducing sugar, they cause the spikes in blood sugar. But that's not to say that carbohydrates are bad. It depends on how we use them. Let me say that, and I'll stop there because we'll talk more. We'll talk more about that. So as you are in your space in your life and you're creating your meals and so forth, even in our balanced bites, remember that there are two components there, right? It is complex carbs and starchy carbs, or starchy and non-starchy carbs. They're in there, or vegetables, because that's where the carbs come from. So we're not saying that carbs are bad, but we're saying, hey, you need to be very mindful of what you're doing, which is why when I say I'm breaking a fast, I say don't eat a lot of carbohydrates, don't eat a lot of high sugary foods, because what happens is your body will produce insulin to try to deal with that, and that sets you up for cravings and weight gain and all those things downstream. An interesting point is that if you've been fasting on a regular basis, then when you initially break the fast, your body doesn't have a whole lot of insulin, and so your blood sugars will spike up a little higher. So that's another reason to, when you're breaking the fast, to ease into what you're eating so that you don't have that big spike, because right at that point there's not a whole lot of insulin in your beta cells, because they have not had to do any sugar regulation. Okay, so be careful. Well, not be careful, but that's one of the points. One of the points that I wanted to make. There. Also, let's see. I think I saw a question. Oh, Teresa was saying I was talking about multivitamin, but I guess that is not a good idea. No, multivitamins are, and in fact, the one that I recommend to people is a multivitamin because it has all the stuff in it. All right, so if you find a good multivitamin, that's fine. But there's not a diabetic vitamin out there. I think that was your question. There's not a diabetic vitamin that anybody has found. You'll hear a lot of people say, "Oh, this is a supplement for diabetics." I look at them. Look at them. Okay. Gian is saying, "Wow, Steve." Teresa's saying, "Steve's the man." That's right. Gian says, "Doctor, what do you usually eat for meals? What do I usually eat for meals?" Oh man. So Gian, you've not been on our Cooking with Dr. Woode. I've got to do one of those. We're going to be doing more of those, by the way, in this season. So hold on to that question, Gian. We're gonna come and share more of that. Could you share what you eat daily? Oh, on a daily basis. Oh, okay. I eat a lot of chicken. As a matter of fact, most of the meat that I eat is chicken. We do a lot of curry chicken. We do a lot of jerk chicken. I do a lot of smoked chicken. I like turkey, so I will go get turkey even though it's not Thanksgiving or even though it's not a birthday or New Year's or whatever. I grew up, my family, my dad cooked turkey all the time. It was like we were having turkey every week almost. So a lot of chicken, turkey is there. On Saturday, we have salmon. That's our Saturday lunch. We've gotten away from that the last couple of weeks and months because we've been traveling. But on every Saturday, for years now, that's what we have for lunch, salmon. I think, so chicken, curry chicken. I like corn. And my wife makes a mean pot of greens, so I love that. String beans, I eat that as well. Trying to think what else. I don't eat breakfast, so I don't eat any breakfast foods. I don't eat any cereals or Pop Tarts or. I will occasionally, if I come home at night, I may make some oatmeal or cornmeal, and this is like making it, not like from the quick one. It's actually getting the pot, getting some water, boiling the water, putting some salt in there, right? So I'll make that on occasion. We do eat a lot of rice here in our house. I have gotten away from that. I grew up. My dad we'd have like his entire plate would be piled of rice, and then he has a bowl on the side where's his, the meat, protein, whatever, and then vegetables. So that's how I grew up eating, with lots of rice. I didn't grow up, well, I said rice and bread, but I don't eat a lot of that now because I know what that does to my blood sugar. In fact, what I do is in place of those carbohydrates, I will eat beans. So like I'll have a lot of, like if I'm doing jerk chicken or curry chicken or baked chicken or smoked chicken, I'll do that with beans. As a matter of fact, I'm going to do some black eyed peas here when I get off, and have some of that. So those are the kind of things that we do. But most of it tends to be surrounded chicken. Okay? Tends to be surrounded chicken. Jennifer says, Sunday mornings are waffles, bacon and eggs, fruit if it's in season. Waffles have always been gluten-free, but now learning to use almond and coconut flour. Good, Jennifer. Thank you. Thank you for that. Jennifer, one of these days, or I should say one of these days, I would love for you to put together a breakfast and send me a picture, and I will show it. All right? So everybody, once you do that, I want you to put together one of your meals, whatever it is. So breakfast, lunch, supper, and send it to us. Send it to me, and I will we'll display it here. You could send it info at DwainWoodeMD.com. Info at DwainWoodeMD.com. I'm gonna pop that in the chat here. Info at DwainWoodeMD.com. There you go. Info at DwainWoodeMD.com. Okay. And we'll go from there. Awesome. All right. So as we are moving into the limitless, I keep saying new year, as we're moving into limitless living, we are working on metabolism, and we are setting ourselves up to reverse diabetes. Now, if you're there and you're like, well, I don't have diabetes, that's okay, right? Because we're still talking metabolism. And metabolism, if we can right metabolism, then all of those other illnesses, all of those chronic diseases get better. Yes? So metabolism, we want to be there. When we talk about limitless living, there are two things that I want to say to you right now that are ongoing. Two tools that we're using. Number one, we're using fasting. That has not changed. We continue to use that for the purpose that we have already talked about. It is not the only tool. It is not the end all be all. It is not the the panacea for everything, but it is a powerful tool that allows us to be in the space of reversing our diabetes. Right? So that will deal with when we talked about food, right? Food is one of those dysregulators. The fasting helps with that. The other thing that we have that's going on right now is our 100-day walk to consistency and health. That deals with the activity because we've got to get used to the activity. We've got to get used to using those muscles. When we do that, we are improving our insulin sensitivity. So fasting is a tool. The activity, 100-day walk to consistency and health is a tool. The tool that we're going to come back and talk about, this is the third one, is balanced bites, because the balanced bites tells us that there are some components that we need to, as much as possible, use as our meals when we're eating. Now, notice the phrase that I use there, as much as possible. So there are going to be some meals that you eat that don't have all the components of balanced bites. There are going to be some times when you travel somewhere or some event is happening and the food that you're eating is not balanced bites. That doesn't mean you failed, but we want to, as much as possible, move in the direction that when we're fueling our body, we understand that every single bite counts. Everything we put in our mouth makes a difference in our metabolism. And if we are righting our metabolism, if we're working on metabolic dysfunction, and how do we bring that back into homeostasis, that is, how we bring that back into normalcy, then balanced bites is where we want to be. So fasting, 100-day walk to consistency and health, and fueling our bodies with balanced bites. All of this is built on our Triple E formula for success. We educate, we empower, and we encourage. Here in this space, that's what we do. Setting ourselves up for success. We educate with the show, with the podcast, with the blog. We empower with the tools that we are learning, and we encourage with the community that you are a part of, the community that you're building. And I just dropped the link into the members area on the channel. You can start popping in there. We'll talk about that at the end. Right? So we educate, we empower, and we encourage. And remember, the things that we put our energies in, 91% of the things we worry about, 91.4% of the things we worry about don't come true. 91.4 of our worries, of our stresses, of our anxieties don't come true. But they do push our buttons. And they cause us to do things that we don't want to do. And we causes us to eat things that we don't want to eat. All right? All right. All right. I do see, let's see. So Jennifer says, let me put this up. She says, okay, I will, I'll use my Star Wars Death Star waffle iron. I love it. And Natalie, hey you guys, this is my sister Natalie Pop. She said pop for breakfast. Pop-Tart for breakfast. And Teresa said, did we sign up for the community meetup? So I'm gonna, that's right, I'm gonna put, so the link that I just put is for right after the show, right? So if you guys are in the community, you know I started a new thing that I do. It's called After the Show, okay? After the show. So I do a little something there, but there's a, right after the show, we've had people who come in and we kind of chat for a little while. So that's for this one. For the community meetup, if you go to the community tab on the YouTube channel, that's where you'll find it. And I'll post that tomorrow. Once you have that link, you will come in. You won't have to sign up for that. It'll be a link that you can just come in. And that's specifically for people who are in the community. Okay? Awesome. Gion said, thank you today, doctor. You are so welcome, Gion. All right. Well, we will continue doing our check-ins this week. So like I said, I ended a fast today at 40 hours. We will pick back up and do our fast as we normally do as we move through the rest of this week. Make sure you join us for those. We will have our video from the vault on Saturday at 9 p.m. And then on Sunday morning at 6 a.m. we'll have this week in review. And then we'll be right back here on Monday, 7 p.m. Central for Dwain Woode, MD. Just so excited to be here. Remember, this Thursday is when our community meetup is going to be. That we have that monthly. The link will show up in the community tab on the YouTube channel. So if you've not done so yet, make sure you sign up for the channel. Become one of our community members, and you'll have access to that. Let's see. I see someone over from Twitch. Let's see. Luxo says, "Hi, hello, Dr. Dwain Woode, MD. Good to meet you. Appreciate the information. Thank you." Hey, thank you for coming through. Get you a hand clap. Hand clap and some music. Always glad when we see new community members from all the platforms. So thank you for stopping through. And we look forward to seeing you as a vibrant part of our community as we move through this space. As always, I say, this is Dr. Dwain Woode. That's Wood with an E. The E stands for endocrinology. Here on the channel, I educate, I empower, and I encourage you to take charge of your health and your life, avoid complications, and go to the next level. And in this year, we're breaking free. We're breaking free from those things that oppose us, those obstacles, and we're presenting our best self, our best health, and our best plans for our life. We're not allowing anything from outside of us or anything from inside of us to prevent us from reaching the goals that we need. Good night, everybody. We'll see you at our next show.